How's it going, everybody? This is Horror Spoop. I am Eric Lewis. Today we're actually talking with the co-host of a podcast called Horror Queers, also staff writer for Bloody Disgusting, Trace Thurman. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Eric. How are you doing?
I am doing so well. It's getting a little cooler, so
Yeah.
um, tis the season, and I feel like the weather has to do something with the Halloween season. Just that brisk kind of air.
It always seems to happen in Texas because I'm so used to like 100-degree heat, but this week it's in the 40s, so
Heck yeah. And it's kind
Halloween.
of great. Is there people in coats right now?
I maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, if it gets below 60, Texas is pretty much like shut down, so it's fine.
Okay. I got you. I'm more of a windbreaker fan myself.
Uh,
So you are the co-host of Horror Queers, which is
mhm,
also a Bloody Disgusting Podcast Network podcast.
yes.
I said podcast twice very close together, so that was, I apologize for that.
It's different when it's on video, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
I'm so used to editing a podcast with audio, so it's like, oh, if I fuck, wait, can I say fuck?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. If I fuck up a little bit, you just edit it out and it sounds cool. Not so with video because you get those jump cuts. You can't do
Oh
that.
yeah. I mean, some movies make it look good. I promise I'm not that good at it. I can try, but I promise it would look pretty bad.
Nah, we'll
Kind
do
of
it
look.
warts and all.
Yeah, one of those like iPhone movie editor kind of things.
Hmm.
Uh, a lot of the time, it just doesn't work very well, but people like to think that they're movie makers out of nowhere.
For sure.
So, because of what you went to college for, I kind of have an understanding that you already loved horror movies
Mhm.
by that time. So,
Ye-
what movie did got that started for you? I guess.
It's really no. I mean, I grew up not like super Catholic, but like relatively Catholic, and my mom was really strict about not letting me watch not horror movies, but not R-rated movies. So, I always wanted to watch like true slashers and stuff, but honestly, I got my start watching movies like Tremors, Gremlins. I would count Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom because I think that's a terrifying movie.
Yes,
Um,
I agree.
and, and then like Hocus Pocus and Scooby Doo on Zombie Island, or
Oh,
really any iteration of Scooby Doo.
yeah. See, with me, it was definitely like Halloween Town when it comes to like Hocus
Oh,
Pocus and stuff like that.
yes.
Halloween Town was like one of my favorite.
That's so I have Disney Plus now and I've yet to like really use it. But
Absolutely.
I really want to go back and revisit the Halloween Town movies and like Don't
Oh,
Look Under the Bed and like those other ones.
yeah, absolutely. And then, I really got into horror with Goosebumps and
Mhm.
Nickelodeon's Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah.
That was actually my favorite, was that.
That's no, like so my mom wouldn't let me watch the show of Goosebumps because it was too scary. And so when I was like in first grade, I got two of the books in like it was like one of those white elephant gifts, but like a book like oh no, it's like a cakewalk but with books instead. But she said if I could read two of the books and tell her what they were about and not have nightmares, then I could watch the show. And that's what I did.
Well, that's perfect. That's actually like a really funny way to get to what you want, I guess. I
Yeah.
guess that's what's going on. With me, if it's on nowadays, if it's on Netflix for kids, then
Mm,
have fun. See, with me, I was very grateful to have parents who grew up very Christian, went to church, everything like that growing
mhm.
up. And but I was very grateful with parents that kind of let me do what I really wanted to do,
Yeah.
uh, which is really great. I do think that kind of is. I don't know if they see that as actually being irresponsible. I'm not quite sure,
I don't know.
but I'm grateful for it. So I mean, that says something, right?
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I'm not a parent, so I can't really comment on anyone's parenting except for my parents, I guess. But
No, I
everyone
understand.
has their own way.
Yeah, absolutely. So what came about that you wanted to do a podcast?
Honestly, it was my co-host. So I mean, I had been writing for Bloody Disgusting since like the tail end of 2014. Like December 2014 is when I started writing for them, and about around the end of 2017, one of the other writers for Bloody, his name is Joe Lipsett, who is also gay. He reached out to me and was like, "Hey, like we're the only two queer members of Bloody Disgusting's freelance writing staff. Do you want to maybe do an article series on queer horror or like looking at horror through a queer lens?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, why not?" It was really fun. and he really wanted to do a podcast at the time, and I said I don't know how to do that, so no. And after about like 9 months, this is like the end of 2018 now, he was like, look, we really need to make this a podcast. And so I did like, my little standard YouTube videos. We pitched it to our editors, Brad Miska and John Squires at Bloody, and they had actually just started a podcast network, like the idea of doing it. So it was good timing. Honestly, it was just fortuitous. And we just turned the article series into a podcast. So that's kind of how it came about.
Yeah, it seems to definitely work. I definitely like it anyway.
Thank you.
So how far into the process of this podcast did you realize I can make money from this? And also, if you could give me the perks of Patreon subscription. I myself am a Patreon subscriber, so I kind of know, but for the general masses, I guess.
We are very appreciative. No, I mean, honestly, if there's any advice I would give someone going into podcasting, it would be to not expect money, first and foremost. We are fortunate. I mean, like, we are charmed and privileged in that we do have Bloody Disgusting as a platform that can promote our podcast. And so that obviously exposes it to a lot of new eyeballs, and there is probably a level of legitimacy to the podcast since it has the Bloody Disgusting brand on it, as opposed to if we didn't have that, then it's like, oh, it's just these two white gay guys who are just talking about horror movies.
Okay.
But when we started the Patreon, I mean, we have 5 different levels. So like our main feed, we will look at any horror film. We try to pick ones that have queer content, be it a queer director, writer, maybe a queer aspect of the plot. Sometimes it's just a movie that we think that the queer community really likes, so that there doesn't actually have to be an explicit queer element. So that's what we do in the main feed. For the Patreon, what we decided to do for that was make it so that any new releases we would cover there. So it would be kind of our letting go of our idea of it had to have queer content, where it's like, hey, if a new movie comes out, we'll review it on the Patreon, and if people really give a shit about what we think, then they can subscribe there. So we have like 5 different levels. We have like a newsletter, mini-sode, like 2 full-length episodes on new films that are coming out, and we always do an audio commentary every month for like a fun movie. Like for Halloween, we're doing Halloween H2O. Right. But it's like, yeah, people can pay either $1, $3, $5, $8, or $10 depending on which benefits they want, and pay monthly. Or honestly, what some people do is they'll like pay for a month, consume as much content as they can, and then quit, and then like 6 months come back for a month and consume like everything they missed over the past 6 months.
Okay, so that actually makes sense. That's a good thought. I don't want to do that, but you're...
No, I mean, obviously we're living in hard times right now, and so I'm sure Joe would like murder me for being like, Trace, why are you suggesting that? But that's, no. I mean, I do that with Patreon, like, because I'm a patron of some creators, and that's what I have to do sometimes. I'll go away for a couple months and come back and catch up.
Yeah, unfortunately, finances is a thing, and I don't like the idea of it. But it's definitely a thing, and some people are definitely on hard times now, especially right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So 5 horror movies that impact you, and during the month of October, what are those 5 horror movies?
Oh my god. The impact. So okay, well, I'm gonna pull up my trusty letterbox because I have like 2 that I'm okay, definitely those. But yeah, okay. So number 1, first and foremost, is Scream 2. That is probably like the horror film that I have watched the most. And I just really, really like it. And I even think it's better than the first one. But that's not a popular opinion.
I understand.
Another one is the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that one, I, of course, hold the original in a very high regard, but there's like a nostalgia factor to the remake where it was one of the first R-rated movies that my mom allowed me to go see in theaters, because I was 14 when it came out, so I wasn't yet 17, so I technically wasn't allowed to watch R-rated movies, and I begged her, like literally got on my hands and knees and was like, please let me go see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
As you should, honestly. I actually love the remake as well, so
it's great. Definitely. And that's one of the first, and like, because my dad did like scary movies, and that was one of the first R-rated scary movies that I saw with my dad in theaters. So that one was just kind of a very formative in shaping who I am as a horror fan today. looking at others, I mean, okay, I'll do like an obvious one now, but I think probably Halloween is going to be my next one. John Carpenter's Halloween.
Okay.
It's, I mean, it's the quintessential slasher. I mean, you could argue that Black Christmas is the quintessential slasher, which that's a valid argument.
Yeah, I really couldn't fight against that. So
Yeah, I mean, just because it came out first, right?
yeah, I understand.
So, but it's just, I mean, it's an iconic film. It has laid the groundwork for a lot of the tropes we see today, for better or worse, and that's that. Another one, I just had it in my head too. Let's see. Okay. These are all like 90s movies besides Halloween, but Anaconda.
Okay, awesome. I love that.
Again, well, because so as a kid, I always loved snakes growing up, and I actually think I realized that after seeing Jumanji, like Jumanji made me really, because my two favorite genres are slashers and creature features / aquatic horror, like specifically water-based creature features.
Oh yeah.
And I think Jumanji helped me be that way, but Anaconda is a movie where like it was. I mean, I loved snakes growing up. They were always my favorite animal. And so I double featured Anaconda in theaters with Volcano one day with my dad when I was 8 years old. Okay. And it was just, I mean, again, it's one of those movies that I probably had on repeat. Like when I got the VHS, I like wore it out because I was watching Anaconda every day for like 5th and 6th grade.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, I actually find it really fun, so I understand that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, it's maybe quote-unquote not a good movie, but it's super fun and dumb.
Yeah. Entertaining is always a good thing. Like, I do understand there is a list I have of good movies, bad movies, and fun movies. I think fun is kind of in its own little category, because if it keeps my attention and keeps me entertained, I find it pretty fun then.
Well, that's the thing. I could sit here and tell you, oh, well, obviously Psycho and The Birds and Don't Look Now and blah, 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 all these, The Exorcist. Like, oh, those are my favorite movies. And I love, well, I actually haven't seen Don't Look Now, but I love the others, the other ones that I listed. But again, if I'm talking like things that shaped who I am today, shaped the horror fan I am today, it's these films that I grew up with. Yeah. And that's just kind of, oh, I guess the fifth one, I mean, if I have to go with one, I'd probably say I Know What You Did Last Summer. I was very much a child of that post-Scream era. A lot of these movies came on TBS or TNT a lot when I was growing up, so I would always watch the edited versions and record them, but I would stop the recording during the commercials so I could like have like the actual movie, but it was just edited for television.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome. I wouldn't even worry about commercials either. I don't. Why do you even need to watch them? What's the point? But those are actually very good movies. I Know What You Did Last Summer. I actually just recently watched that. I'm a big fan of Urban Legends.
The Urban Legend is super. Honestly, it's funny because people always say that Urban Legend is like, you know, a post-Scream slasher. It's influenced by Scream. Urban Legend actually feels more like it's indebted to 80s slashers than it does Scream. But yeah. I digress.
Yeah, I understand that. I just think it was really well made. I actually got into listening to horror queers because of the Scream franchise. Yeah. I never gave it a try. Well, I did once. I watched the first Scream, wasn't really impressed. Right. Didn't watch it again. Then I heard a podcast about Scream and listened to it, and I was like, all right, I think I need to watch that again. And then the opening scene for Scream 2 is probably now on my list of my favorite scenes in horror movies. And Scream and Horror Queers has actually, it's changed everything on the movie Scream for me, because then I watched it again and it totally changed. So
that is always our goal. Like, you know, we'll cover things we love, things we hate, things we're like really on the fence about. But like, if we can convince people to like give movies that we love a second try and actually change their mind on it, like I'll die happy. I mean, not right now, but like later in life.
I hope you're healthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's exactly it. I actually thought that would be very encouraging for a podcast, that you actually have people who have changed their minds and it actually prompted them to actually go watch it again.
Yeah.
Because I was like, surely this is better than I thought, because I wasn't impressed. They seem to love it.
I mean, I have the same thing. You know, I'll go watch a movie. Like I never really cared for Suspiria that much, like the original. That's really something that I was like, this is honestly kind of boring. I don't like the dubbing. Like I learned that Giallo is not really a thing. I have since learned because I've done my research. I've read things on it, and I've learned to appreciate it, if not wholly like it still. But I think that's the thing. You know, we all have a way that we watch movies. We have things we expect when we watch movies, and so what Scream was giving you when you watch it the first time may not have been like what you were wanting when you're seeking out a horror movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the Halloween 3 complex.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you had no idea you were getting into this, and really, yeah, how self-aware it was probably my first turnoff by it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually just started paying attention to film, and when I heard that podcast, I was like, all right, I kind of understand what they were doing now, so maybe I should watch it again.
Meta in horror can be very difficult because I think Scream does it very well, but you can have a movie that's like, or even Cabin in the Woods does it really well, where it's subtle, where it's not like, I always say bad meta is when the movie grinds to a halt, so a character can be like, look at this thing we're doing. It's just like in those horror movies we watch. That's bad meta.
Okay, I understand that. Yeah, Cabin in the Woods is actually very surprised by how much I actually ended up enjoying that movie. Yeah, very weird concept, and they did it pretty well.
How old are you? Would you mind if I ask?
28.
28. Okay. So because I'm 31, so we're about in the same age group.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, those are actually very good movies for this October season.
Mm-hmm.
With me, I'm actually a anthology fan. I love watching anthologies a lot.
Really?
So, yeah, so there's actually a lot about that. Trick or Treat's just something that recently I've actually really gotten into.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think it's the fact that I've recently got into TV shows more, which I'm guessing I just like can't pay attention for too long.
Well, I was gonna say because with anthologies and TV is the attention span. Because with TVs, it's like with TV shows,
Yeah.
you know, okay, you have 45-minute episodes. You can take a break. Anthologies, it's okay, cool, short stories. So it's like, and you just kind of start over when the next one starts.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's like that. I can't really explain it. I really enjoy it. I can watch through an entire movie, watch very intently. But then there's some movies that, man, my phone is my worst enemy. And sometimes with a lot of movies, I find myself messing on my phone at random stuff and only look up when someone screams. And
that is why I miss movie theaters, because watching movies at home, like if I have my phone near me, I'm gonna be on the phone. So if I'm in a theater, I will not have my phone out, because I mean the theaters in Austin, we have like Alamo Draft Houses, and if you pull out your phone, you get one warning and then they kick you out on the second warning. So
man, they don't play around. I understand that though, because I actually find a big pet peeve with seeing people's faces light up in the theater. I don't know why. I find it really, really odd. It's a weird shade on people's faces. And it kind of reminds me of the face in the Haunted Mansion in the mirror. But just very spooky.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being on here.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your Instagram handle for everybody that's going to be watching this?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much you can find me on any form of social media, be it Instagram, Twitter, whatever, at Traced Thurman. So it's my first name, last name with a D in the middle. Or you can find Horror Queers, again, Instagram and Twitter at Horror Queers.
Perfect.
So it's good.
And Horror Queers is pretty much on every platform.
Yeah, I mean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. I think Amazon now has an Amazon podcast thing going.
So I had no idea about that.
Yeah, I don't think anyone knows, but they're trying. God bless them.
Well, hopefully whoever watches this get Amazon Podcast or something like that.
For sure.
But of course, if you really want to, go to Patreon and show your homie some love.
Yeah,
and I promise it's actually good. It's really good content, and I also love audio commentary a lot, which is really weird also, but I like that. I'm actually a big fan of Joe Bob Briggs just because I like commentary.
For sure.
And he's also just funny.
Yeah.
So right now, you have Shudder?
I do have Shudder, yes.
Okay, what is your favorite movie that is on the Shudder catalog right now?
Okay, well, I'll do two. I'll do one that I just think is really fun and scary, and one that I think is required viewing. The really fun and scary one I think is Host. That's of course the COVID horror film that was filmed via Zoom, which is just
Yeah.
a really, and it's 56 minutes, which is a really good selling point for me.
Yes, absolutely. Especially on a one format
Yes.
type horror film. Yeah.
But I'll for the next one, I'll actually do a queer horror film, and it is foreign, so if you don't like subtitles, sorry. But it's called Knife Plus Heart,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's about a serial killer in the 70s who is killing all of the actors in a gay porno film.
Yeah.
So
And
it
killed in very risque ways, can we say?
yeah, we've
Yeah.
got some bladed dildos in there, so it's very 70s sometimes.
Oh man, it's a really fun time. That's actually a really good movie. Another
Yeah.
movie that didn't really know anything about, watched it, enjoyed it, and then you had a podcast episode on about it. Or is it a Patreon episode? I'm not sure.
It is a main feed episode. It's
Okay.
a main feed one, so yeah, that one's freely available, so y'all can search
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, so go search for that. Go watch that movie also.
Mm-hmm.
So I am Eric Lewis. This is Horror Spoop. Thank you so much for being on here.
Likewise. Well,
And everybody, enjoy your Halloween time. All right?